Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. The signal came from a place no map wanted to show. It was weak, broken, and almost lost in the noise of deep space. Most sensors ignored it. Most machines filtered it out. The forbidden sector had been silent for centuries, and every advanced race believed that silence was safer than answers. But the signal was real. It repeated the same simple pattern again and again. A cry for help. An SOS. That day, the galaxy made a mistake by thinking humans would also ignore it. Across the stars, the Galactic Council gathered in a chamber made of light and stone. Ancient races sat in floating seats, their eyes cold and tired. They had seen many wars. They had seen many worlds die. When the weak SOS was displayed in the center of the chamber, no one showed surprise. One elder spoke slowly and reminded the council of the forbidden sector. Long ago, fleets had entered that region and never returned. Sensors failed. Crews vanished. The space itself felt wrong. The sector was declared cursed, and a law was written. No ship would ever go there again. Another council member added that the signal could be a trap. Pirates, ancient weapons, or worse. The galaxy had learned to survive by choosing caution over courage. Helping one unknown voice was not worth risking entire civilizations. One by one, the races agreed. The signal would be ignored. The council vote was clear. No response. No rescue. Silence was safer. Then a name was spoken that made the chamber uneasy. Humans. Deathworlders. A younger council delegate asked if the signal might reach them. The elders reacted at once. Humans were unstable. Their homeworld was violent. Their history was filled with wars, rebellions, and strange acts of heroism mixed with cruelty. They survived storms, predators, and each other. Many races believed humans should never have reached the stars. Giving them access to forbidden knowledge was dangerous. An elder reminded the council that humans had a habit of doing the opposite of what they were told. They were curious to the point of madness. Where others retreated, humans advanced. Where others calculated risk, humans followed instinct. The council agreed to block the signal from all known channels. Firewalls were raised. Warnings were sent. The galaxy believed the problem was solved. But the signal had already slipped through. On the edge of human-controlled space, a deep listening station picked up the faint SOS. It was old technology, built for patience, not speed. Human engineers noticed the pattern almost by accident. At first, they thought it was static. Then they saw the repeat. The timing was wrong for natural noise. Someone was calling for help. The station commander ordered a silent analysis. No reports were sent to the Galactic Council. Humans had learned that councils talked while people died. The signal origin was traced, and the forbidden sector name appeared on the screen. The room went quiet. Every human present knew the stories. Ships that vanished. Crews that never came home. The warnings were clear. Do not go. But the signal continued. In a distant human fleet command, senior officers reviewed the data. They saw fear in the signal, not deception. It was weak because whoever sent it was running out of time. Human analysts compared the message structure to known languages. It did not match any enemy pattern. It was raw, simple, honest. Someone was dying and hoping anyone would answer. The fleet commanders debated. Some spoke of the law. Others spoke of risk. Then one commander asked a simple question. What happens if we ignore it? No one answered at first. Then another officer replied that the sender would die. Slowly. Alone. Knowing the galaxy chose silence. Humans remembered their own history. Times when no one came. Times when help was too late. Their wars had taught them many dark lessons, but one belief remained strong. If someone calls for help, and you can answer, you do not turn away. Without informing the Galactic Council, orders were prepared. A small but powerful task force was selected. Ships designed for combat, survival, and precision. Crews volunteered knowing the risk. No speeches were made. No banners were raised. This was not about glory. It was about response. As the fleet prepared to jump, long-range sensors detected movement in the forbidden sector. Energy spikes. Weapon fire. Whatever had sent the SOS was not alone. Time was running out. The human fleet commanders looked at the final data and gave the order. Engines roared to life. Space bent around the ships. Coordinates were locked. No permission was requested. No approval was needed. Humanity had made its choice. Far away, in the dark cursed sector, the SOS continued to echo into the void. Whoever sent it did not know who would answer. They only knew they were running out of hope. And as human ships tore through hyperspace toward the Forbidden Zone, the galaxy remained unaware that everything was about to change. The council chamber was silent after the human fleet vanished from known space. Sensors showed their jump path, clear and direct, aimed straight at the forbidden sector. Panic spread among the delegates. This was exactly what the elders had feared. Humans had heard the signal, and they had chosen action over permission. The council rushed to understand what this meant, and to do that, they began to speak openly about why the galaxy feared Deathworlders in the first place. Long before humans joined the stars, the galaxy had learned one rule of survival. Life grows gentle on gentle worlds. Most races evolved on calm planets with stable weather and few predators. Conflict was rare. Cooperation was natural. When these races reached space, they carried this mindset with them. War was something to avoid. Risk was something to calculate. Survival meant balance. Earth was not gentle. Human historians recorded storms that could erase cities, earthquakes that split land, and predators that hunted for sport. Even the smallest creatures could kill. Humans did not inherit peace. They fought for every step of survival. Their bodies adapted to pain. Their minds adapted to loss. Where other species broke under pressure, humans learned to endure. The first alien explorers who reached Earth expected chaos and extinction. Instead, they found a species that had mastered its violent world. Humans had built cities, laws, and art on a planet that tried to kill them every day. That alone frightened the galaxy. But fear turned into terror when humans brought their instincts into space. The Council replayed old records. Human wars were short and brutal. When threatened, humans did not seek balance. They sought an end. Their weapons were efficient. Their tactics were adaptive. If a plan failed, they changed it instantly. They learned from every mistake, often while still fighting. Enemy commanders found this deeply unsettling. One council elder recalled a border conflict from centuries ago. A human colony was attacked by raiders. The council debated response protocols while humans acted. In 3 days, the raiders were erased. Not defeated. Erased. Humans hunted them through debris fields and hidden bases until nothing remained. When asked why they went so far, the human response was simple. They wanted to make sure it never happened again. This was why humans were called Deathworlders. Not because they loved death, but because they understood it. They lived with it. They planned for it. And when forced, they delivered it with calm precision. Yet there was another side the Council rarely discussed. Humans protected fiercely. Their loyalty to allies was absolute. If humans chose to defend something, they would not stop, no matter the cost. This made them dangerous friends and unstoppable enemies. Many races preferred to keep humans at a distance, using them only when no other option remained. As these truths echoed through the chamber, a new message arrived. Human fleet transmissions, encrypted but detectable. They were moving fast. Faster than expected. Their ships were not scouting. They were advancing. This worried the Council more than weapons ever could. Humans did not rush into unknown danger without reason. If they were moving this way, they believed the SOS sender was worth the risk. Far from the Council, aboard the human flagship, the mood was focused and quiet. The commander stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the main display. Data streamed in from every angle. Radiation spikes. Wreckage fields. Energy signatures consistent with battle. This was not an empty cursed zone. It was a killing ground. The commander ordered full tactical readiness. Shields were reinforced. Weapons were brought online, but no one spoke of attack yet. Humans were not there to conquer. They were there to answer a call. But they understood a simple truth. Someone strong enough to trap a sector was strong enough to fight back. A junior officer asked why the galaxy feared humans so much. The commander answered without turning. Because when humans decide something matters, they do not stop. Fear comes from certainty, not chaos. And humans were very certain. As the fleet crossed deeper into the forbidden sector, sensor ghosts appeared and vanished. Space bent strangely. Old warnings seemed justified. But human ships adapted. They recalibrated. They pushed forward. Fear was acknowledged, not obeyed. Back in the council chamber, an elder whispered a grim realization. If the humans survived this, the galaxy would never see them the same way again. And if they failed, the forbidden sector would gain new ghosts. The human fleet reached the edge of the signal's origin. The SOS grew clearer now, louder, desperate. It was no longer just a call. It was a countdown. The commander raised a hand and gave a final order. All ships, prepare for contact. Whatever waits ahead, we finish it. And in that moment, the galaxy's greatest fear moved one step closer to becoming its greatest force. The SOS did not come from a war fleet or a fortress world. It came from a small blue planet hidden behind layers of burning debris and shattered moons. As the human fleet moved closer, the full picture finally appeared. Cities were burning across the surface. Atmosphere fires glowed like scars. Orbital stations drifted in pieces. Whoever lived here had already lost the war. The signal was not a request for victory. It was a plea to survive. The alien species called themselves the Lyran. They were tall, thin beings with pale skin and wide reflective eyes. Their bodies were fragile, built for calm gravity and quiet skies. Their world had once been peaceful, rich in water and soft land. They had never built great weapons. Their ships were designed for trade and exploration, not combat. When the first enemy vessels arrived, the Lyran believed it was a mistake. The enemy called themselves the Varkesh Dominion. They were conquerors who thrived on fear. Their culture believed weakness deserved extinction. They searched the stars for worlds that could not fight back. The Forbidden Sector was their hunting ground. They used hidden routes and weapons banned by galactic law. Entire species vanished before the Council ever noticed. The Lyran tried to contact the galaxy. They followed every protocol. They sent peaceful greetings. They begged for mediation. No one answered. The Council warnings blocked their messages. When the first cities fell, panic spread. The Varkesh did not negotiate. They erased orbital defenses and burned population centers to break hope. Every Lyran knew they were watching the end of their species. As the last defense line collapsed, Lyran scientists activated an ancient emergency beacon. It was old technology, slow and weak, but it could travel beyond normal channels. It was never meant to work. It was a final act of defiance against silence. When they sent the SOS, they did not expect a response. They only wanted the universe to know they had existed. On the human flagship, the bridge crew watched the devastation in silence. No cheers. No anger. Just focus. The commander studied the enemy fleet positions. Varkesh warships surrounded the planet in tight formations. Heavy carriers blocked escape routes. Smaller hunter ships moved through debris, searching for survivors. This was not random violence. It was systematic destruction. A human analyst confirmed the worst. The Varkesh were preparing for planetary cleansing. In a few hours, nothing would remain. No cities. No life. No signal. The commander closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. Time was almost gone. The fleet advanced without slowing. Human ships emerged fully from hyperspace, weapons hot, shields flaring. The sudden appearance triggered enemy sensors. Varkesh commanders reacted with confusion, then amusement. Scans showed unfamiliar designs, but no known alliances. They assumed these newcomers were weak or foolish. A Varkesh transmission cut through open channels. It was mocking and cruel. They warned the humans to leave. This sector belonged to the Dominion. Resistance would be punished. The human commander listened, then responded with a single calm message. "We are here for the ones you are killing." The Varkesh laughed. They increased fire toward the planet, accelerating the destruction. They wanted the humans to watch. That was their mistake. On the surface, Lyran survivors hid in underground shelters. Power was failing. Air was running thin. The SOS device was melting from overload. A Lyran elder stood beside it, whispering apologies to future generations that would never exist. When human ships appeared on damaged sky monitors, the shelters fell silent. Many believed it was an illusion created by fear. Then the first Varkesh ship exploded. The blast was clean and precise. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. No warning shots. No threats. The human fleet had arrived, and the battle had begun. Varkesh commanders scrambled to reorganize. Their confidence shattered. These new ships were fast. Too fast. Human weapons targeted engines, command nodes, and weapon cores with perfect accuracy. Every shot mattered. Every hit crippled or killed. On the human bridge, the commander gave clear, cold orders. Protect the planet. Destroy anything that threatens it. No unnecessary fire. No wasted time. This was not revenge. It was rescue. The Lyran watched the sky change. Enemy ships that had terrorized them for months were falling in flames. Hope returned slowly, painfully, like light after long darkness. They did not know who the humans were. They only knew someone had finally answered. As the battle spread across orbit, the Varkesh realized the truth. They had awakened Deathworlders. And for the first time, fear moved through the Dominion ranks. The SOS had been heard. And the response was already unstoppable. The sudden destruction of the first Varkesh ship shattered the rhythm of the battle. Confusion rippled through the Dominion fleet as alarms screamed across their command decks. Enemy commanders had expected hesitation, warnings, or negotiations. Instead, they faced a force that spoke only through action. Human ships moved with purpose, sliding into formation like blades aligning before a strike. Every movement was measured. Every second was used. Varkesh sensors struggled to track the human fleet. Their ships changed vectors without warning, using short bursts and sudden stops that ignored standard combat doctrine. To the Dominion, it looked chaotic. To the humans, it was control. Each vessel covered another. No ship advanced alone. No ship retreated without reason. The enemy fired heavy volleys, but most shots missed or struck reinforced shields that absorbed the impact and adapted instantly. A Varkesh commander ordered a full scan of the human flagship. The data terrified him. Power output levels exceeded expectations. Armor density suggested survival in extreme environments. These were not explorers or traders. These were warships built by a species that had learned combat through survival. The commander demanded to know who they were fighting. The answer arrived on an open channel, clear and calm. This is Human Fleet Command. You are attacking a protected population. Stand down immediately. The message carried no threat, no anger. It was a statement of fact. The Varkesh replied with laughter and insults. They claimed ownership of the sector. They boasted of worlds destroyed and species erased. They offered the humans a choice. Leave now or be wiped from history. To the Dominion, fear was a weapon. They expected it to work again. The human commander did not argue. He gave a single order. Target command ships. Disable their ability to coordinate. In seconds, precision strikes cut through the Varkesh formation. Human weapons avoided random destruction. They aimed for nerve centers. Communications arrays vanished. Flagship engines failed. Dominion fleets that relied on centralized control began to fracture. Smaller ships panicked, firing wildly or colliding with debris. Varkesh pride turned to rage. They released attack swarms, thousands of smaller craft rushing toward the human lines. The sky filled with movement and fire. Human point defenses activated, tracking each target with machine accuracy. The swarms were cut apart before they could reach effective range. Explosions lit the darkness like brief stars. On the surface below, Lyran shelters shook as distant blasts echoed through the atmosphere. Emergency screens showed impossible scenes. The enemy that had ruled their skies was losing. Lyran civilians whispered prayers to beings they had never known. For the first time, survival felt possible. A damaged Varkesh carrier attempted to crash into the planet as a final act of cruelty. The human fleet reacted instantly. A single human cruiser moved ahead of formation, firing a controlled burst that split the carrier in two. The wreckage burned up in the upper atmosphere, saving millions below. No celebration followed. The cruiser returned to position. Varkesh commanders now understood their mistake. These humans were not there to fight for territory. They were fighting for people. That made them unpredictable and unstoppable. Dominion leaders ordered a tactical retreat, but the command network was broken. Escape routes were already blocked by human ships anticipating the move. One surviving Varkesh leader opened a private channel, his voice shaking. He demanded to know why humans cared about a weak species they had never met. The human commander answered simply, "Because someone asked for help." The Varkesh could not understand this logic. In their culture, mercy was weakness. Protection was ownership. They believed kindness was a lie. Facing humans shattered that belief. Humans did not fight for gain. They fought because they chose to. The battle reached its turning point. Human marines boarded disabled enemy vessels, moving through corridors with disciplined speed. Close combat was brief and decisive. Dominion soldiers, trained to terrify, now felt fear themselves. Humans adapted instantly, countering every tactic. Resistance collapsed from the inside. As the last major Varkesh command ship fell silent, the battlefield grew quiet. Burning wreckage drifted away from the planet. Human ships repositioned, forming a defensive shield around the world below. The immediate threat was gone, but the war was not over. On the human bridge, the commander watched the planet rotate slowly beneath them. Millions were alive because they had arrived in time. But sensors still detected deeper Dominion forces beyond the system. This was only the first wave. He turned to his officers and spoke in a steady voice. "Secure the planet. Begin evacuation and medical support. Prepare for counterattack. We hold this line." Far away, hidden observers transmitted fragments of the battle to the wider galaxy. The Council would soon see the truth. Humans had not come to negotiate. They had come to protect. And the Forbidden Sector was no longer silent. The silence after the battle did not feel peaceful. It felt heavy, like the moment before another storm. Human ships held their positions around the Lyran planet, forming a moving shield of steel and light. Wreckage drifted slowly, glowing as it cooled. The first phase was over, but the humans knew better than to relax. Enemies who attacked like the Varkesh never accepted defeat quietly. On the surface, Lyran emergency leaders finally dared to activate long-range scanners. What they saw did not feel real. The enemy fleet that had crushed them for months was broken. Human symbols filled the sky. Strange ships moved with calm purpose, not like conquerors, but guardians. For many Lyran, this was the first moment they allowed themselves to breathe freely. Human shuttles descended through damaged atmosphere, landing near the largest surviving cities. Medical teams and engineers moved out immediately. They did not wait for permission or thanks. They followed protocols shaped by disaster relief on their own harsh world. Wounded civilians were treated first. Power grids were stabilized. Air systems were repaired. To the Lyran, this was shocking. No one had ever helped them during a war before. In orbit, Human Fleet Command received new intelligence. Deep space sensors detected movement beyond the system. A second Varkesh force was approaching, larger than the first. This one carried heavy siege ships and planetary weapons. The Dominion had not expected resistance, but now they would answer with overwhelming force. The human commander studied the data. The enemy expected fear. They expected humans to retreat after a single battle. Instead, the commander issued a new order. We do not chase. We do not scatter. We hold position and prepare. Every ship adjusted its placement. Weapons were recalibrated. Ammunition was redistributed. Damaged vessels were moved behind stronger shields. Nothing was wasted. A junior officer asked why they were not striking first. The commander replied that protection came before pride. The planet was the mission. Everything else was secondary. This was how humans fought when something mattered. The second Varkesh fleet arrived like a dark wave. Their ships were larger, heavier, built to crush resistance through raw power. Dominion commanders believed the first fleet had failed due to arrogance, not weakness. They planned to correct that mistake with force. The first shots came without warning. Massive energy beams tore through space toward the human line. Human shields flared, absorbing impact, redistributing energy across the fleet. Some ships shook under the pressure, but none broke formation. Human return fire did not come immediately. They waited. They measured. Then they responded. Human weapons struck with ruthless precision. Instead of targeting hulls, they targeted systems. Engines failed. Weapon cores destabilized. Command ships lost control. One by one, the enemy's advantage disappeared. The Varkesh had numbers. Humans had focus. The Dominion attempted psychological warfare. They broadcast images of destroyed worlds, threats of extinction, promises of endless suffering. Human channels remained silent. Fear tactics meant nothing to a species that had faced extinction many times on its own world and survived. A Varkesh siege ship moved into position, charging a weapon designed to crack planets. The human commander saw it instantly. He ordered a coordinated strike. 5 human ships broke formation just enough to expose the target. In a single synchronized volley, they destroyed the weapon core before it could fire. The explosion lit half the system. The siege ship drifted apart in silence. That moment broke the enemy's confidence. Varkesh formations began to falter. Orders conflicted. Retreat signals mixed with attack commands. Human fleets exploited the confusion, not with rage, but with efficiency. Boarding teams disabled key vessels. Escape routes were sealed. The battle became controlled, one-sided, inevitable. On the Lyran planet, survivors watched the second enemy fleet fall. This was no longer just rescue. This was protection enforced by power. Lyran leaders finally sent a message to the human commander. It was short and filled with emotion. They thanked him and offered anything they had in return. The human commander responded with equal simplicity. You owe us nothing. Stay alive. As the final Varkesh ships fled or burned, the human fleet did not pursue blindly. They marked enemy vectors, transmitted warnings, and let fear spread on its own. The message was clear. This world was no longer prey. Far away, hidden relays carried recordings of the battle across the galaxy. Observers replayed the footage in disbelief. Humans had not just won. They had dominated without cruelty. They had shown restraint without weakness. This confused many races more than violence ever could. The human commander looked once more at the planet below. Children would live. Cities would rebuild. A species would continue because an SOS had been answered. He knew this moment would echo far beyond this system. And in the dark edges of space, other powers took notice. Deathworlders had drawn a line, and the galaxy would never forget where it was drawn. The battle had ended, but the work had only begun. Human ships remained in defensive formation while rescue operations expanded across the Lyran planet. Fires still burned in distant cities, and damaged stations drifted in unstable orbits. Human engineers worked without rest, sealing breaches and restoring power. Medical teams treated the injured with calm speed. They did not ask who was important. They did not choose by status. They helped anyone they could reach. For the Lyran, this behavior was deeply confusing. The Varkesh had shown them what conquerors looked like. They took, destroyed, and punished. Humans were different. They were strong, but their strength was controlled. They carried weapons, but used them only when needed. Many Lyran elders watched the humans quietly, trying to understand what kind of species would risk everything for strangers. A captured Varkesh commander was brought aboard the human flagship. He was wounded but alive. Dominion law expected execution or torture. That was how fear was maintained. The Varkesh commander waited for pain, preparing himself for humiliation. Instead, he was treated by human medics and placed in a secure room. No one insulted him. No one threatened him. This disturbed him more than violence ever could. The human commander entered the room later, standing calmly across from the prisoner. The Varkesh demanded to know why he was still alive. In his culture, mercy was a trick or a weakness. The commander answered simply, "Because the fighting is over, and you are no longer a threat." The Varkesh laughed bitterly. He said humans were fools. He warned that the Dominion would return with greater force. He promised endless war. The commander listened without emotion. Then he explained something the Varkesh had never heard before. Humans believed mercy had meaning only when it was a choice, not a surrender. They showed mercy after victory, not before. That was the difference. While the prisoner struggled to understand this, new reports arrived. Scattered Varkesh ships were attempting to regroup at the edge of the system. Some were damaged. Some were trying to escape. Human commanders debated pursuit. Many wanted to end the threat completely. The human commander considered this carefully. He ordered a limited response. Human ships intercepted only those vessels still attacking or threatening civilians. Ships that fled were tracked but not chased beyond the system. This decision surprised many officers, but the commander was clear. Fear would spread faster if the Dominion survived to tell the story. Mercy, when backed by strength, could become a warning. On the planet, Lyran leaders finally met human representatives in person. The meeting was quiet and respectful. The Lyran spoke of loss, of cities erased, of families gone. Human officers listened. Some had seen similar destruction on their own world. They did not promise revenge. They promised protection until the Lyran could stand again. The Lyran asked why humans had come when no one else did. The answer was the same as before. Because you asked. As days passed, evacuation corridors were established. Refugees were moved to safe zones. Food and water were distributed. Human logistics systems operated with practiced efficiency, born from centuries of disaster response. To many Lyran, this was the first time order had followed chaos. The captured Varkesh commander was shown footage from the surface. He saw humans shielding Lyran children from radiation. He saw human medics treating enemy wounded alongside civilians. His understanding of power began to crack. The Dominion believed fear created control. Humans used responsibility. He asked the human commander one final question. What would happen to him? The commander replied that he would stand trial under galactic law. Evidence of his crimes would be shared openly. Judgment would not be rushed. This concept terrified the Varkesh more than execution. Facing truth without violence was unfamiliar and unbearable. As news of the battle spread, the Galactic Council could no longer remain silent. They received data, recordings, and survivor testimonies. The Forbidden Sector was no longer cursed. It was occupied by humans protecting a wounded species. Some council members were relieved. Others were afraid. The power humans had displayed was undeniable, but so was their restraint. Observers began to understand something new. Humans did not see mercy as weakness. They saw it as control over themselves. Violence was a tool, not a desire. This realization unsettled the galaxy. On the human flagship, the commander stood by a viewing port, watching the planet recover slowly. He knew the Dominion would not forget this defeat. Future wars were likely. But he also knew something had changed. The galaxy had seen Deathworlders choose mercy after victory. He turned to his officers and spoke quietly. We answered one signal. Now the stars are listening. Far away, in systems that had long remained silent, Other weak voices began to wonder if they should call out too. The Galactic Council chamber had not been this crowded in centuries. Delegates arrived from every major civilization, some in person, others through shimmering holograms. The reason was clear. The forbidden sector was no longer silent, and the ones who had broken that silence were humans. Massive screens displayed recordings from the battle, rescue operations, and civilian evacuations. The evidence was impossible to ignore. The Council elders watched in uneasy silence as footage showed human ships absorbing heavy fire while protecting a weak planet. They saw precise strikes disabling enemy fleets without unnecessary destruction. They saw human medics treating wounded aliens, including enemies. This was not the reckless brutality many had feared. It was something more controlled and far more dangerous. Debate erupted across the chamber. Some delegates argued that humans had violated Council law by entering the forbidden sector without approval. They warned that allowing such behavior would undermine galactic order. Others countered that the Council's own inaction had nearly caused the extinction of the Lyran. Silence, they argued, was also a choice, and it had almost ended a species. One elder spoke of balance. The galaxy had survived by avoiding risk, by limiting contact, by choosing safety over intervention. Humans challenged that philosophy. They had shown that decisive action could stop evil before it spread. But that same decisiveness, if unchecked, could reshape the galaxy by force. As arguments continued, a live transmission request arrived. It was from the Lyran leadership. The chamber fell silent as their image appeared. The Lyran spoke with visible emotion. They described the terror they had endured and the moment human ships appeared in their sky. They did not call humans conquerors. They called them protectors. They stated clearly that without human intervention, their species would now be extinct. This testimony shook the Council. For the first time, the cost of ignoring the SOS became real. The forbidden sector was no longer an abstract danger. It was a graveyard narrowly avoided. Meanwhile, within human space, public awareness of the mission spread rapidly. Humans across different worlds watched the recordings with mixed emotions. Pride, grief, and resolve blended together. They saw their fleets not as destroyers, but as shields. Veterans remembered old wars. Civilians remembered times when no help came. The response was unified. They supported the decision to answer the SOS. Back near the Lyran system, human fleets remained alert. Long-range sensors detected increased activity along Dominion borders. The Varkesh were regrouping. Smaller skirmishes broke out on the edges of controlled space. Human commanders did not escalate blindly. They reinforced defenses and shared intelligence with nearby systems. This was not conquest. It was containment. The human commander was summoned to address the Galactic Council. His image appeared in the chamber, standing in uniform, calm and direct. He did not apologize for entering the forbidden sector. He explained his reasoning clearly. A call for help was heard. A civilian population was under attack. Delay would have meant extinction. Humans chose to act. An elder asked if humans intended to become the galaxy's enforcers. The commander replied that humans did not seek authority. They sought responsibility. If a threat endangered innocent lives, and no one else acted, humans would not look away. This answer caused both relief and fear. The council questioned him about restraint. Why not pursue and destroy the Varkesh entirely? The commander answered that endless war creates endless enemies. Protection was the goal, not domination. Mercy, when backed by strength, could prevent future bloodshed. This concept divided the council deeply. Some saw wisdom, others saw risk. But none could deny the results. As the session ended, a vote was proposed. Emergency measures would be taken. The forbidden sector would be reclassified. Human forces would be allowed to operate there temporarily under observation. It was not trust, but it was recognition. Far from the council, the Lyran planet continued to heal. Schools reopened in underground shelters. Children looked up at the sky and saw human ships still guarding them. For the first time since the invasion, they slept without fear. The human commander watched these developments from orbit. He knew the galaxy was watching every move. One mistake could turn admiration into fear. One success could change galactic history. He reminded his crews of their purpose. They were not there to prove strength. They were there to protect. In distant systems, other civilizations observed quietly. Some felt hope. Others felt dread. A new truth was spreading through the stars. When Deathworlders chose to act, the galaxy had to pay attention. And somewhere, in a dark corner of space, another weak signal began to form, waiting to see if humanity would answer again. The warning came without sound. Human deep space sensors detected a massive energy buildup far beyond the Lyran system, hidden behind stellar interference and ancient debris fields. At first, it appeared as a natural anomaly, but human analysts recognized the pattern immediately. This was not random. This was deliberate. The Varkesh Dominion was preparing something far more dangerous than a fleet. The human commander ordered a full intelligence sweep. Data streams revealed the truth piece by piece. The Dominion had activated a forbidden superweapon, an ancient device designed to destabilize stars. It was a relic from an earlier age of galactic warfare, banned by every known law. Once activated, it could turn a living system into a burning grave within hours. The Lyran planet was its target. News of the discovery spread quickly. Human ships shifted formation, reinforcing shields and recalculating evacuation plans. Engineers warned that even with defenses, the planet could not survive a stellar collapse. The only option was to stop the weapon before activation completed. The Galactic Council was informed immediately. Panic erupted across the chamber. Elders demanded immediate retreat, arguing that the weapon's use would draw the entire galaxy into war. They feared escalation more than extinction. Some suggested sacrificing the Lyran system to avoid greater conflict. The human commander listened in silence. Then he spoke. Retreat was not an option. The weapon would not stop at one world. Allowing its use would normalize annihilation. Today it was the Lyran. Tomorrow it would be someone else. Humans would not accept a galaxy built on fear of decisive action. The Council attempted to overrule him. Emergency restrictions were issued. Human fleets were ordered to withdraw. The commander acknowledged the message, then closed the channel. Orders were given. The fleet would advance. The superweapon was protected by a massive Varkesh defense ring, layered with minefields, heavy carriers, and automated kill platforms. Dominion forces believed the weapon untouchable. Any fleet approaching it would be annihilated long before reaching firing range. Human strategy was simple and terrifying. They would not overwhelm the defenses. They would cut through them. A strike group was formed from the fastest and most heavily shielded vessels. Human pilots volunteered knowing survival was unlikely. No speeches were made. No promises of return. Only preparation. The rest of the fleet would provide distraction, drawing enemy forces away from the weapon core. The attack began with controlled chaos. Human fleets launched simultaneous assaults across multiple vectors, forcing Varkesh commanders to split attention. Fake retreat signals confused targeting systems. Electronic warfare blinded sensors. The defense ring began to fracture under pressure. The strike group pushed forward, absorbing brutal fire. Shields flared and collapsed, then reformed. Ships were lost. Crews were lost. But the formation held. Every sacrifice bought seconds, and seconds were everything. As the group closed in, the superweapon came into view. It was massive, built into an artificial structure orbiting a dying star. Energy conduits glowed as activation reached final stages. Countdown markers appeared across human displays. Minutes remained. Varkesh forces swarmed the attackers. Boarding attempts failed as human marines repelled assaults with disciplined fury. Close combat raged in corridors filled with smoke and gravity shifts. Humans adapted instantly, using broken structures as weapons. The human flagship reached firing position. The commander gave the order to disable the weapon, not destroy it. Precision strikes targeted stabilizers and energy feeds. One by one, systems failed. The star's reaction began to slow. Then a Varkesh dreadnought rammed the flagship, locking them together. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches spread. The weapons countdown continued. The commander made a final decision. He ordered all other ships to withdraw and transmit the data. The flagship would finish the mission alone. Engineers rerouted power from life support to weapons. Human crew members stayed at their stations, fully aware of what this meant. The final shots were fired point-blank into the weapon core. The superweapon went dark. The star stabilized. The countdown stopped. Moments later, the human flagship broke apart under combined damage. Escape pods launched in all directions. Many did not survive. But the weapon was neutralized. Silence followed. Across the galaxy, sensors confirmed the impossible. A forbidden weapon had been stopped. A system had been saved. The cost was high, but the line had been held. The human fleet regrouped slowly. Losses were counted. Names were recorded. No celebration followed. Only resolve. The galaxy now understood a terrifying truth. Humans would sacrifice everything to protect others. And that truth would change every future war. The aftermath of the superweapon attack was chaotic, but the human fleet refused to rest. Many ships were damaged, some barely holding together, yet the crews moved with disciplined purpose. Escape pods from the destroyed flagship were recovered, their passengers treated immediately. Every officer, every marine, every engineer knew the mission was not over. The Varkesh Dominion still existed, still threatened life across multiple systems, and their reach extended far beyond the Lyran planet. Humanity's duty was clear: protect those who could not protect themselves, no matter the cost. Sensors detected new Varkesh movements, smaller fleets trying to regroup at the edges of the system. Some attempted to flee, others tried to launch isolated attacks on orbital stations. The human commander ordered interception. These were not minor skirmishes. They were tests, probing weaknesses, hoping humans were distracted or weakened by previous battles. Every crew member knew the danger. Yet humans did not hesitate. They moved swiftly, cutting off enemy forces before damage could occur. Precision strikes neutralized engines, targeting nodes, and weapon systems with ruthless efficiency. No ship escaped intact. On the Lyran planet, civilians watched the skies filled with human ships in constant motion. The strange vessels had become guardians. Children whispered about heroes, elders prayed quietly, and even the strongest among them were in awe. They had never witnessed organized strength coupled with restraint. Every attack from the Varkesh was countered without collateral damage. Every rescue mission saved hundreds. Survival had become a reality they thought impossible. Human Marines prepared boarding actions for enemy vessels that had been disabled but still posed threats. Boarding teams moved through corridors, weapons ready, systems hacked, traps disarmed with calm precision. Dominion soldiers, trained to terrify, were caught off guard. Humans adapted to every tactic instantly, turning what should have been panic into victory. Many Varkesh surrendered without resistance, confused by a species that fought with purpose but spared life whenever possible. The human commander monitored these operations personally. Reports arrived from every ship, resistance collapsed quickly, casualties among the enemy minimal because humans avoided unnecessary destruction, the system remained secure, civilians were safe. The commander knew this balance of brutality and restraint was why humans were feared and respected. They were lethal when needed but merciful when possible. This combination unnerved the Varkesh more than any weapon. Meanwhile, across the system, Lyran survivors were being evacuated from vulnerable areas. Safe zones were established quickly. Supplies distributed with careful management, no one left behind. Human engineers repaired energy grids, cleared debris from key transport routes, and restored communication channels. This efficiency was unmatched, born of experience in environments far harsher than this one. Lyran leaders began to understand that humans were not only warriors but caretakers. Varkesh commanders, hiding on damaged vessels, began to communicate in panic. Orders conflicted, and many ships drifted aimlessly. Their pride had been shattered in previous battles, and now uncertainty replaced arrogance. No one had expected humans to fight with such precise purpose while protecting an entire planet. It was a lesson they would never forget. A senior human officer received a report that an enemy flagship attempted a final desperate attack on a planetary evacuation corridor. Without hesitation, the officer dispatched a team to intercept. The boarding party neutralized the vessel with minimal collateral damage, ensuring the safety of civilians. Humans did not celebrate. They returned to position. Every life protected was considered victory enough. The commander convened his officers to review new intelligence. Varkesh remnants were scattered but capable of regrouping. Some attempted escape, others sought vengeance. The human fleet did not pursue blindly. Instead, they monitored and prepared. They established observation points, maintained rapid response teams, and reinforced key planetary defenses. This was containment without overreach, control without domination. Above the Lyran cities, human ships patrolled steadily, their presence a constant reassurance. The population began to rebuild slowly, inspired by the precision and mercy displayed by their saviors. Children learned of the humans' actions through stories, and elders taught lessons of hope for the first time in months. Communities began to reorganize, seeing structure and safety return where once there had been only chaos. Meanwhile, the Varkesh realized that conventional tactics would no longer work. Fear had failed. Strength alone had failed. Humans had displayed a new kind of power, calculated, decisive, and moral. Their enemies struggled to comprehend a species that could destroy or protect with equal efficiency. This uncertainty spread throughout Dominion forces, weakening morale faster than any battle could. The human commander addressed his crews once more. He reminded them that survival and protection were the true measure of victory. Weapons were to be used only when necessary, lives to be preserved whenever possible. The Varkesh might continue to attack, but they would now face a species that combined lethal skill with unbreakable resolve. The crew understood. They had witnessed the consequences firsthand. As night fell across the Lyran planet, human ships maintained orbital guard. Sensors scouted the edges of the system, tracking every movement, every anomaly. No threat would reach the planet unnoticed. The commander observed the stars beyond and reflected on the path ahead. The mission was far from over. Yet the message was clear: humans did not retreat. Humans did not abandon the innocent. They would fight. They would protect. They would endure. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, scattered Varkesh vessels began to transmit their reports in fear and disbelief. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Deathworlders did not flee, they did not negotiate under duress, and they did not fail when lives depended on them. Their presence would be remembered, feared, and respected in every system they touched. The first true line of defense had been established, and the galaxy would never forget the resolve of those who answered the call. The calm after the battle was deceptive. Human ships continued to orbit the Lyran planet, scanning for hidden threats, repairing minor damages, and reinforcing orbital defenses. Even though the main Varkesh fleets had been defeated or scattered, pockets of enemy resistance remained. Some tried to regroup in nearby star systems, while others launched desperate attacks against transport convoys. The human commander understood that the danger was far from over. Protection required vigilance, not celebration. Human engineers worked tirelessly, repairing orbital stations and rebuilding planetary shields. They installed new sensors capable of detecting cloaked ships, monitored the atmosphere for radiation leaks, and ensured that evacuation corridors remained clear. Human logistics teams coordinated the distribution of food, water, and medical supplies across hundreds of affected cities. No one was overlooked. Every life mattered, and every operation was executed with the efficiency born from centuries of surviving harsh worlds. The Lyran leadership met with human officers frequently, seeking guidance and learning how to manage their own planet's recovery. They were amazed at the humans' methodical approach. Where the Varkesh had relied on fear and brute force, humans relied on knowledge, strategy, and discipline. They repaired what had been destroyed, protected what remained, and minimized further loss. For the first time since the Dominion's arrival, the Lyran dared to hope. Varkesh forces, meanwhile, were in chaos. Smaller fleets, scattered by previous defeats, attempted to communicate, coordinate, and regroup, but fear had taken hold. The survivors understood that humans were different. They did not rely on intimidation or terror. They did not hesitate or retreat. They acted decisively and with precision. The Varkesh had never faced an enemy that combined lethal efficiency with restraint, and it left them disoriented and vulnerable. A captured Varkesh commander was interrogated aboard the human flagship. He was proud, defiant, and convinced that humans would eventually falter. He expected anger, threats, or execution. Instead, he was met with calm questions and careful analysis. Human officers wanted information, not revenge. They asked about Dominion fleets, weapon caches, and hidden systems. Every answer they received would be used to prevent further attacks and protect the innocent. The prisoner's own pride became his undoing. He could not understand why humans treated him with fairness while still neutralizing his forces. The human commander reviewed the intelligence personally. Reports indicated that some Dominion ships had fled to uncharted sectors, others were hiding among debris fields or cloaked in asteroid belts. The Varkesh were learning caution the hard way, and humans were methodical in their response. Instead of reckless pursuit, they established patrols and observation points, ready to intervene if threats arose. Their approach was deliberate. They were not hunters. They were guardians. On the surface, the Lyran began the slow process of rebuilding. Schools reopened, hospitals expanded, and markets reopened under human supervision. Engineers taught Lyran technicians how to maintain repaired systems and prepare for possible future attacks. Children looked up at the sky, seeing human ships in orbit, and believed they were safe. Adults whispered stories of the humans' bravery and restraint, realizing that their saviors had not only defeated the Dominion but had done so without unnecessary cruelty. Meanwhile, new intelligence from deep space probes detected unusual activity at the far edge of the system. Energy readings suggested that remnants of the Dominion were attempting to establish a new base in a nearby asteroid field. The human commander analyzed the threat. The position was isolated, but could allow the Varkesh to rebuild if ignored. He ordered a small, specialized strike force to neutralize the installation. Precision would be key. They would destroy only what was necessary and leave surrounding areas untouched. The strike force deployed silently. Cloaked sensors tracked Dominion ships attempting to escape. Boarding teams infiltrated the asteroid base, disabling weapons and communications. The operation was swift and surgical. No civilian life was threatened. By the time the Varkesh realized what had happened, the installation was gone, and the survivors were in custody. Humans had sent a clear message: attacks would not be tolerated, but unnecessary destruction was not their way. Across the galaxy, news of these operations began to spread. Observers watched recordings of the fleet's movements, the rescue of the Lyran planet, and the calculated neutralization of remaining threats. Other species began to question long-held beliefs about humans. They had expected reckless violence, unpredictability, or arrogance. Instead, they witnessed discipline, mercy, and an unyielding commitment to protect the vulnerable. Fear and respect began to mix in equal measure. Back aboard the human flagship, the commander addressed his officers. The Varkesh were scattered but not gone. Some would attempt revenge. Some would seek to exploit other systems. The galaxy was still dangerous, and the Lyran planet was now a symbol of what humans could do. Every crew member understood the responsibility that came with such power. Strength without control could lead to tyranny. Precision without mercy could lead to hatred. Humans had chosen a different path. As night fell across the Lyran cities, human ships maintained orbital patrols. Sensors swept for anomalies, debris drifted slowly from destroyed fleets, and evacuation corridors remained ready. The planet was far from healed, but hope had returned. Humans had shown that action was possible when others would only wait. They had proven that responding to a signal, no matter how weak or unlikely, could save millions of lives. In the far reaches of space, Varkesh survivors transmitted warnings to other Dominion sectors. Humans were not just warriors. They were protectors. They would act decisively and without hesitation. The message was clear: Deathworlders did not abandon the innocent, and their resolve would shape the galaxy for generations. The line had been drawn. The galaxy would never forget it. And in the silence between stars, new weak signals began to form, small cries for help waiting to see if humanity would answer again. The galaxy now knew that when humans heard a call, they would respond, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. The era of Deathworlders had truly begun. The Lyran planet was slowly recovering, but the human fleet remained in orbit, a silent shield against any remaining threats. Ships drifted in precise formation, repairing minor damages, and recalibrating sensors to detect even the faintest movement. Every crew member knew that vigilance was the only way to ensure the Dominion could not return unnoticed. The humans had learned long ago that war was never truly over, only paused. On the surface, life returned gradually. Children played cautiously among rebuilt structures, schools reopened under human supervision, and markets began operating with security provided by human teams. The Lyran were still cautious, but hope had returned. For the first time, they understood that protection did not always come from fear or dominance. Humans had shown them that power could be used responsibly, and that mercy did not mean weakness. Meanwhile, in the shadowed corners of space, scattered Varkesh remnants were plotting. Some attempted to regroup near uncharted systems, while others tried to contact surviving allies across the galaxy. Messages were filled with panic, disbelief, and warnings. The humans had shattered the Dominion's reputation for invincibility. These survivors did not just fear destruction, they feared the humans' ability to act decisively while remaining merciful. It was a concept they could not grasp, and it left them disoriented. The human commander received updates continuously. Intelligence reports indicated new potential threats, from hidden bases to rogue Dominion ships attempting to rebuild fleets. The commander convened his officers for a planning session. "We do not hunt blindly," he said. "We protect. We contain. We prevent unnecessary loss of life. The enemy will act. We must be ready. Our goal is defense, not vengeance." Every officer understood. Humanity's strength lay not only in their firepower but in their restraint. A senior officer raised a concern about the scattered Dominion remnants. Some believed the Varkesh might strike quickly, trying to reclaim lost prestige. The commander nodded. "If they attack, we intercept. If they flee, we track. Our response will be measured. Strength without control is chaos. Control without strength is useless. Balance is our weapon." The room fell silent. Every officer knew the meaning. Humans would act where others hesitated, but they would act with precision and purpose. Meanwhile, the Lyran leadership sought advice on rebuilding governance and defense systems. Human officers shared knowledge about planetary security grids, communication networks, and resource management. They taught the Lyran how to monitor their skies, maintain orbital structures, and prepare for possible incursions without instilling fear. The Lyran learned quickly. The humans did not just save their lives. They empowered them to survive independently in the future. On one of the orbital platforms, engineers discovered faint traces of cloaked Dominion ships attempting to flee the system. A rapid strike team was deployed. Ships maneuvered silently, intercepting the Dominion vessels before they could reach hyperspace lanes. Boarding teams disabled engines, communications, and weapon systems with minimal force. The operation was executed without collateral damage. Every crew member knew that protection, not destruction, was the mission. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the human commander transmitted a report of the system's stabilization. Many delegates were stunned. Humans had not only neutralized a major threat but had preserved life, infrastructure, and hope. Some council members were relieved, while others were cautious. The humans had acted independently, without explicit authorization, yet the results were undeniable. Fear of humans grew alongside admiration. They had become a force unlike any other in galactic history. Meanwhile, new intelligence suggested that the Varkesh Dominion might attempt diplomatic deception. They could pretend to surrender, offering false peace while rebuilding strength in hidden sectors. The human commander anticipated this. "We accept no false promises," he told his officers. "We act on evidence. Our judgment is measured, but our actions are absolute when lives are at stake." Every officer prepared for the possibility of another Dominion attempt at trickery. On the Lyran planet, civilians slowly began to explore beyond immediate safe zones. Children laughed where silence had reigned for months. Markets buzzed with activity. Medical teams operated efficiently, treating both residual injuries and illnesses caused by prolonged exposure to war conditions. Human engineers trained local teams to manage repairs, ensuring that recovery could continue even if humans withdrew temporarily. For the Lyran, this was more than protection. It was empowerment, a chance to rebuild without dependence on outsiders indefinitely. Human fleets maintained constant surveillance. Patrols scanned the edges of the system, monitoring hyperspace lanes and anomaly signatures. Long-range sensors detected every movement of Varkesh ships attempting to regroup. Intercept teams were ready to act at a moment's notice. Human Marines trained continuously, adapting to new scenarios. Every crew member understood that victory was not permanent. Survival required constant vigilance, preparation, and measured action. As night fell across the Lyran cities, human ships patrolled steadily above, their lights reflecting on the repaired atmosphere. The Varkesh Dominion was still out there, scattered and weakened, but the message had been sent. Humanity did not abandon the helpless. They answered calls for help, even in the most dangerous situations. Across the galaxy, other species began to consider what it meant to rely on humans for protection. Their reputation had changed forever. And in the darkness beyond known space, small signals began to flicker, faint SOS calls from systems long forgotten. Across the human fleet, sensors detected them one by one. The commander stood on the bridge, watching the stars and listening. "We answer," he said. The officers knew what he meant. Humanity would continue to respond, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. The galaxy had learned that when humans heard a call for help, they would come. And that knowledge would change everything. The galaxy had grown quieter, but the calm was deceptive. Human fleets remained in motion, scanning systems far beyond the Lyran planet. Every signal, no matter how faint, was analyzed. New SOS transmissions began appearing from distant, isolated sectors. Weak civilizations, abandoned by larger empires, reached out in desperation. Humans answered each one without hesitation. They did not wait for approval, did not negotiate for gain, and did not pause for politics. They moved with precision, speed, and unwavering purpose. On the Lyran planet, reconstruction was well underway. Cities once reduced to rubble now had shelters, energy grids, and medical facilities restored. Children played among the remnants of old structures, laughing for the first time since the Varkesh invasion. Adults worked alongside human engineers, learning not only to rebuild but also to fortify their communities against future threats. The humans did not simply repair the damage. They empowered the Lyran to survive independently. Education, governance, and security systems were restored with careful instruction. Hope was no longer fragile, it was tangible. In orbit, human ships maintained a vigilant shield. Sensors scanned for anomalies, detecting hidden Varkesh craft and rogue elements attempting to regroup. Every movement was monitored. Fleet commanders coordinated with orbital defense teams and planetary specialists to ensure no threat went unnoticed. Humans acted as guardians, not conquerors. Every decision emphasized the protection of life, even when facing potential danger. Meanwhile, scattered Varkesh survivors struggled to comprehend what had happened. Their arrogance and reliance on fear had failed against humans. Every fleet they rebuilt was intercepted before it could strike. Every attempt at intimidation ended with precision countermeasures. For the first time, the Dominion realized that humans were unpredictable, not reckless, but entirely unstoppable when defending the helpless. Their fear turned to desperation, their confidence to uncertainty. A human reconnaissance team discovered a hidden Varkesh supply station in a remote asteroid cluster. The Dominion had hoped to rebuild their forces quietly, undetected. Human strike teams moved in immediately. Cloaked ships approached silently, targeting engines and communication arrays first. Boarding teams disabled weapon systems and neutralized threats without unnecessary destruction. The operation was swift and surgical. Not a single life of innocent civilians or planetary allies was lost. Back on the Lyran planet, civilian leaders began organizing long-term governance. They consulted with human officers and engineers, implementing strategies to monitor their own skies and secure vital infrastructure. The Lyran population learned resilience from the humans. They understood that true protection required foresight, training, and discipline. Humans had not only saved their lives, they had prepared them to survive independently. The Galactic Council convened again to discuss humanity's role. Reports from multiple systems confirmed a new pattern. Whenever an SOS signal was detected, humans acted decisively, neutralizing threats and protecting the vulnerable. Some council members were impressed, others fearful. Humanity had bypassed traditional bureaucracy, ignored political caution, and achieved results that no one else could match. The council debated whether humans should be limited, controlled, or observed more closely. Yet none could deny that lives had been saved that otherwise would have been lost. Human commanders reviewed intelligence from deep space. Sensors detected faint signs of Dominion attempts to regroup in remote systems, but the humans had anticipated their strategy. Interception teams were deployed in advance, cutting off supply routes, disabling hidden bases, and neutralizing enemy fleets with surgical precision. Every move was calculated. Every action prioritized the survival of innocent civilizations over the destruction of the enemy. The captured Varkesh commanders who remained in human custody began to understand the full scale of the situation. Their pride had been shattered, and their arrogance replaced by fear and confusion. Humans treated them with fairness, interrogated them for information, and then acted decisively against any remaining threats. Mercy and power existed together in a way that the Dominion could not comprehend. Their teachings, fear-based and rigid, failed against this balance of lethal skill and ethical restraint. Across the galaxy, weaker civilizations began to observe the pattern. Signals were sent, some desperate, some tentative. And each time, humans responded. Ships emerged from hyperspace, shields flared, weapons were prepared but only used when necessary. Survivors were protected, systems were stabilized, and Varkesh remnants were neutralized before they could cause more harm. Hope spread through the stars as civilizations learned that calling for help no longer meant abandonment. On the Lyran planet, human ships finally began rotating patrol schedules, maintaining presence while allowing some civilians to operate freely. The humans did not leave entirely. They remained as a deterrent, as teachers, and as guardians. Children looked up at the sky, knowing their world was safe. Adults spoke quietly of the Deathworlders who answered the call when no one else would. Their presence was not domination. It was protection, discipline, and the embodiment of choice backed by strength. The human commander addressed his officers one final time during the rotation shift. Every signal is a life. Every decision we make can save thousands. Strength without mercy is meaningless. Mercy without strength is worthless. We will continue to answer every call, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to face danger without hesitation. This is our duty, and this is our choice. As the fleet moved to the edges of the system, sensors detected new SOS signals forming, faint and fragile. Across the bridge, officers prepared coordinates, readying ships for hyperspace jumps. Humanity's reach extended farther than anyone had imagined. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. When humans hear a call for help, they answer. And the consequences of that truth would echo across every star system, changing the balance of power, hope, and survival for generations to come. The era of Deathworlders had begun, and no SOS would go unanswered. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars, and the galaxy would never forget it.